We'll be back from the break. Now let's continue with more business. Today, we look at the World Bank's economic update. Now, the World Bank's Uganda economic update gives a summary of the current economic trends and a medium-term economic outlook. The data highlights the significance of regional commerce and integration to Uganda's future development. The World Bank predicted a regional commerce. The World Bank did predict regional commerce will lead to an economic boom, particularly given the macroeconomic outlook for Uganda's GDP. Ronan Nahabwe with the details.
So today the World Bank has launched the economic update report for Uganda. And for me, the key takeaway from this report is that Uganda needs to intensify its effort in regional trade. This could be done by rationalizing tariffs and then also blocking the barriers that are at the border points. One of the key panelists here also mentioned that we also need to look at the previous markets that we have had, such as COMESA, SADC, before we even look at the bigger markets such as the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have more of this report.
Estimates that in Africa, incomes could rise by up to 450 billion US dollars, lifting 30 million people out of poverty as exports, especially intra-region, so that is within the Free Continental Trade Area, jump up by about 29% by 2035. And for Uganda in particular, exports could increase by over US dollars 2.5 billion in the same period, 2035 being that end of that period.
The near-term microeconomic outlook for Uganda, which is examined twice a year, predicts a sustained recovery that will boost real gross domestic product, that is to say the GDP growth, from 4.7% in the fiscal year of 2021-2022 to 5.5% in fiscal year of 2022-2023. A prediction that isn't significantly different from the one made in June 2022. The Ugandan economy must expand even more quickly and sustainably in order to create enough jobs for one of the world's fastest growing populations, spur income growth, and pull its people out of poverty through strengthening regional and international trade relations.
There would also be benefits to be had in terms of job creation. So estimates show that roughly 600,000 Ugandans enter the job market each year. And so creating jobs is an important priority for the government. And so the AFTA could potentially, if implemented fully, provide a 1.7% increase in jobs in agriculture. Also, we'll see an increase in agro-processing as well as other services. Fossil fuels, the employment in fossil fuels will decline as there will be a reallocation of employment from that sector to agriculture.
In the same vein, the Ministry of Trade notes that despite the fact that this study has an impact on the grassroots participants in the manufacturing and textile sectors, which are expected to grow, there are still issues that the East African community is currently working on to overcome.
While import growth will likely focus on agriculture and agro-processing, this is something that we are trying our level best to change, to make sure that the manufacture, the textile, and all that these industries move forward. But we still have limitations. That's why agriculture still sounds bigger and sounds higher, because agriculture, anyway, Uganda is agriculture based, almost looking at the percentages. Now, Uganda's exports in manufactured goods could increase also by US dollars 1.45 billion, while exports of chemicals, rubber, and plastic products would rise by US dollars 396 million. This is a good projection also. And this report also projected changes in exports and imports, which will be driven by the relative intensity of labor and the reduction in trade costs under the African Continental Free Trade Area. The report that we are going to launch today is so perfect, and it is touching the local person. It's directly touching the ground where we want our journey to go. And the report, however, cautions that non-tariff barriers continue to limit trade. It has also identified it. which is our fight now as East African Community, as COMESA.
Unconventionally, one of the panelists asserts that the key to boosting the economy is translating the terms of the agreement and making them realistic. Highlighting common market agreements should be a priority.
Coffee, whether it's milk, whether it's anything, the whole issue is how do we use what's in the agreement practically to be able to increase our exports, our production, our industrialization. And I will come specifically to the issue you have raised. But I think we need to look at it broadly. How do we benefit from these agreements? And when I talk about these agreements, because the CFTA, for me personally, I'm not sure why we are talking so much about the CFTA, yet the CFTA is a build-up from the domestic trade, from the EAC trade, from the tripartite trade, and then to tripartite is EAC, COMESA, and SADC, because we also have that arrangement. Then we go into the CFTA. In fact, when you look at that lineup, that means we're already trading with COMESA, we have a relationship with SADC, we are just adding on CEMAC, we are just adding on ECOWAS, and that's the CFTA. So when we are looking at how to benefit from trade agreements, let us look at all those market agreements we have signed and why we are not. But if we are to export our fish to the EU market, we are exporting it and we enter the market and we remain in that market. And when you look at what's happening, the history of our trade has been rejection. Some products are rejected, we're imposing self-bans, and for me, I think we need to address those issues. There are issues I have talked about being on the table. The private sector and the value chain actors need to be on the table. These negotiations.
Bank of Uganda was also tasked to respond if some of the policies, like the report underlined, they have taken to keep the economy resilient are justifiable.
Is a short-term effect on growth. We expect it to be a bigger benefit in the long run. Let us increase interest rates right now, be able to curb inflation. During the report, you notice that some other countries still under the same inflation targeting have inflation of about 40%. Okay? Uganda has had inflation go to about 10.6% for headline. So basically, I think the bank is taking the right policies. Again, it is in the short term, it is a cost to growth temporarily, so that then we can, in the long term, it will be more beneficial than letting inflation skyrocket.
Since the inaugural Uganda Economic Update urged the nation to think strategically in 2013, the government has made very little progress. Now Uganda needs to clear the impediments that have long diminished the efficacy of the current regional agreements. Trade is nonetheless hampered by the non-tax obstacles such as discriminatory technical regulations, uncoordinated sanitary and phytosanitary standards, as well as failing to adhere to administrative compliance. Rona Nahabwe, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
And right now, in our coffee call discussions tonight, the government's investment arm, the Uganda Development Corporation, set out to create a 10-year strategic plan in order to reposition itself and fulfill its objective. Ronan Harbour provides further information about this and more in the coffee code.
Hello and thank you for joining us for this episode of Coffee Court. My name is Rona Nahabwe and this is where we dissect the important subjects in the business community for people in the business community to digest. So with me today is the Executive Director of Uganda Development Corporation, who I'll give a chance to introduce himself. Now, the Uganda Development Corporation is a government body that promotes and facilitates the economic and industrial development of the country. Good evening, sir, and you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rona. Good evening, viewers. My name is Patrick Birungi. Yes, the Executive Director at the Uganda Development Corporation. Maybe by way of introduction is the Uganda Development Corporation is the investment arm of government. It is established by an Act of Parliament, the UDC Act of 2016. But to let you know that UDC is a very old but a new institution. It's very old because it was first established in 1952. And it disappeared in the 90s as a result of the policy change, but its core function never went away and resurfaced in 2016 under the UDC Act of 2016. So we are new because the current UDC is basically the UDC of 2016 going forward. I'm privileged to have been the first CEO fully appointed. The others were acting in 2019. So we do investments on behalf of government. In other words, where government does not have stake, where government wants to take stake, UDC should be available to hold the stake on behalf of government. So by way of introduction, you're welcome.
Thank you. Like you mentioned, you're obliged to do it's not doing. So I'd like to know what are some of the areas why?
Yes, rightly so. Where we do investments, we do not go to compete with the private sector, but we go in to support the private sector, or where the private sector is not doing enough, but government feels that this is strategic. So we are in three broad categories. The first is agro-processing. The second is mineral value addition. And the third is services and infrastructure development. So when it comes to areas of agro-processing, we add value to different agricultural products. It could be fruits. We add value to get either concentrate or juice. In Soroti, for example, we produce juice and concentrate. So we sell both concentrate to other juice producers, but we also sell the juice currently branded as a Teju juice. And it's available in many supermarkets in the country now. We are going to launch another project in Yumbe come March, April this year. So we shall be adding another project, which project will again also help us to process more of the fruits, especially from that belt in the north.
In regards to mineral.
A few more examples in agriculture, then I'll come to mineral. We are doing tea processing in the western parts of the country. We're going to establish a project in Zombo, but we have running projects in Chenjojo, in Kabarole districts, in Kamale, in Paningwa, and in Soro districts. So we have tea processing facilities that we've supported in these areas. We're also into sugar processing in Atiak Sugar. We are in there with a 40% stake. So for mineral value addition, We are currently exploring investments in 4 broad areas. In processing of marble in Moroto, and also process cement and lime from limestone in that area. We are also in the process of exploring possibilities of going to produce sheet glass in Masaka. That's called DIMU. We are exploring with the private sector again, produce salt in Lake Katwe, and also iron and steel in Muko, Hawaii. So those are the 3 areas. We don't have a running project now, but we are in the investment phase of exploration and moving.
A scale of 1 to 10. Those that were already going.
I'll score them about 50%, so it's 5. And the reason being that investment in these industrial establishments are not like investing in a kiosk. They have heavy capital requirements, and they are slow at return because you need long grace periods. Most of these mature in 6, 7, 8 years to have a break even. So that's why I would score them at 50 in terms of performance at the moment. But all of them are moving in the right direction towards making profit.
COVID-19 alone has had many economic factors that have infringed. So as Uganda development, has this, how are the lowest or the people at the grassroots?
COVID-19 was a world over problem, and therefore UDC and Uganda in particular were not spared as well. The first is, if there's anything we learned from COVID-19, was we need to be a little bit inward looking and develop our own capacities. So for us, I'll give an example. The tea industry is largely for the export market, and the entire logistical system to ship the exports from the factory to the final consumers was disrupted. So, which meant that as much as our policies here allowed the factories to continue working even during lockdowns, the market was locked because the logistics were not there. The same trucks you saw on the border are the same trucks that come and pick our output and take it to Mombasa for onward forwarding. So at the end of it all, we produced as much as we can. We had heaps and heaps of product, but we didn't have market, and we had to stop the leaf. Remember, the garden doesn't know that there is COVID-19. The leaf continues to grow. So we had to stop the leaf coming in because we couldn't exit some of the products. So as a result, the farmer didn't get paid for his leaf. The gardens got disrupted as a result of that. So that's one. Secondly, again, COVID-19, most of our businesses are either import substituting or export promoting. So to us now, it also showed us that we need to do more of the import substituting production processes, because the country and the economy lacked certain products that we didn't have in the market, and we could not import them because of the disruption in the global logistical system. So That put us pressure on us as well to look for more and more resources. Secondly, we are also getting pressure of very many other failed or failing institutions coming seeking for support. Because COVID-19 affected them in their own right as private sector, but now they have to run to government to seek support. And one of those institutions that they will come to will be UDC. So the pressure on us has also increased. So we have a heap of projects that we have to scan through and appraise and do due diligences and be able to make investment decisions. So still we are affected by COVID by just giving us a little more job than we asked for. So that is another challenge that we are experiencing at the moment.
So I would assume that you are the smart, right? So I would like to how different.
UDC at the forefront is largely intervenes in medium to large estimates, 3 billion plus. Okay, so medium to large. So that's the scope and the kind of interventions that we would most likely do. That does not mean that we do not have a relationship with the small and medium, but the relationship may not be direct with UDC, but more with the other financing institutions or through linkages to our business enterprises. So it will be rare to find UDC doing a deal with a 200 million investment because that's not the space we are in at the moment. The difference between UDB and UDC is one, UDB, from the historical perspective, the mother company that produced UDB was called Yugadev Bank. Yugadev Bank was a subsidiary of UDC. So it is a financing arm. UDB is more of a financing arm. And they do two products. They do largely two products. They do debt and do a bit of equity. But their equity is very small. They remain within 25% of the total stake, and they do small, medium enterprises. The space we are not doing a lot of work. On our side, we don't do debt, we do equity. We can only do debt once we are shareholders and say do a shareholder loan. Okay? But our stake is usually equity. So we do equity investments in relatively large investments as well. We work together with UDB very closely, sometimes in appraisals of certain projects. We are also discussing to see that we do certain work together, like BDS, Business Development Services for enterprises, so that we can be able to deliver on our joint mandate. But lastly, we are established by an act of parliament and registered companies. Hard question. The truth is, I'm not sure there is anyone who has ever said, now I have enough money. So similarly, UDC, we are not well funded given the demand or given the strategic importance that we hold. We are not adequately capitalized. Recently, we were in cabinet, and the cabinet helped us lift our capital base from 500 billion to 5 trillion, meaning that we have space now. We have the fiscal space to finance larger investments. But specific in the budget, may not be adequately financed as we wish. Yeah, there are concerns, and the people have these concerns. But we must also educate the public. We've made some quite significant investment in that year. The factory was up and running and launched in October. But there were not adequate investment because UDC was on the factory side. Other government agencies were working on the farming side. So there were investments in the garden side. So the gardens were not adequate to supply the factory. So there was a mismatch. That is point number one. Number two, there were wildfires. Wildfires which led to erasing a lot more than 7,500 acres in that area. So all this began to take the project backwards because the factory is ready, but the gardens are on fire. So there was again a mismatch between the sugarcane supply. So lack of raw materials has been one of the biggest constraints. So what is new is that now we've come up with a new strategy. And the new strategy is the owner of the factory manage and own the garden as well. And then mechanize the agriculture side. So now we are working on the mechanization. Very soon we'll see heavy equipment next year, trying to mechanize the garden side so that we can have a match between the garden, that is the raw material, and the factory. And I assure you the transformative impact of that project is going to be enormous.
What
A few things I'd like to come on board. I had mentioned earlier, we're going to launch a fruit processing factory in 2023 in Yumbe. That will be up and running. In the same year, we shall launch a convention center in Rio. That will also be coming on board within 2023. And so these are some of the new initiatives, but I also expect the projects that we've invested in to grow and to move and be more impactful to the communities. For example, in Kalangala, we provide ferry services between Pakata and Bugoma in the main island. And we also supply water and electricity on the island. Now, in that area, we expect an undersea cable and or COLA, but there will be an electricity supplying cable under the water to Kalangala, and that is going to be a game changer for Kalangala. And we will be part of that process to make sure that we cause the change in 2020.
that now? And I hope expect any from you. Ronana.
And that is it for the Coffee Court tonight, and also bringing us to the end of business today. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Wins and Akauchi on Sign Language. Have yourself a blessed night. Good evening.